bit I've been looking forward to it all anyway, actually. But Anne Scottlin is an incredible woman. She's had an incredible life, and she is so full of chutzpah and go-get-em and doing the right thing for the right people. I'm just so proud that she is one of our members. And it's really weird that we seem to have an awful lot in common, not just what we're wearing today. So I'm going to hand straight over to Anne as our member. She's going to be talking about how we can connect to her by understanding her journey and where she's been. Over to you, Anne. You're on
Myself, unmute myself. There, I have done it. Thank you, Jill. And I was thinking when you were playing the song at the very beginning, I meant to text you this week. You're not going to believe me, but I'm going to tell you anyway that I literally woke up in the middle of the night and the theme song was going through my head.
Yes.
So mission accomplished.
The new one, officially. Thank
That
you.
is like for real, the real truth. Yes. I was like,
Oh.
and I couldn't get it out. And I was like, oh, that's the point.
Do you remember
So
all the words? I still struggle with all the words. I don't know all
yeah,
of them.
I had the refrain down, I think, but we are strong, we are one.
Sing it out
Okay.
at the end.
Yes, right. Okay, so I am just going to there we go. Jump in here. Thank you again, Richard, for everything you shared on joy and freedom. I I really, there's not much to add to what you shared, but it was really moving. And I love when I saw on your website too, that you talk a lot about joy, because my book from a couple years ago that Jill has is called Live for Joy. So right up your alley, and we'll definitely have to talk sometime. But joy and freedom. And right now I'm going to continue to talk about very specifically about freedom. And I think this just is like a miraculously tied together today. So I mean, yeah. Okay. So grateful. So I'm Ann Scottlin. I'm a personal development coach and teacher. And this is the Getting to Know You segment that we have in every member meeting. And I was so glad also, Richard, that you brought up Rosa Parks and her journey to freedom. And then even the assignment in the breakout sessions was spectacular, because moving from fear to freedom is an entire theme that I've been working through. I'm going to keep my short story really short. There's always more for another day. We can, so we have a little time at the end before I'm done to share a very small exercise with you that you might find helpful. So I get to continue and share what I was sharing in the breakout room. I shared one story, but Jill asked me to share more of my life story, and here goes. So as a little child, I was born into a family that was an extreme right-wing religious family in America, choosing to live in the country, a lot of cult-like interactions on a religious Christian side of things. I was homeschooled through 8th grade. I never even been in a school until high school, and that was a tiny high school that was a religious school of 65 students in the whole school. So it was very works-based. It was very, very patriarchal. I learned to really hate myself at a young age because I was so hard on myself. I was the firstborn. I was the only daughter. I was, 4 and 6 years older than my siblings, wearing long dresses, wishing I could be part of the real world, and desperately wanting to belong. But because the only way I could belong was to perform within such a conservative and rigid religious environment, was to just do that environment really, really well. So basically brought out a competitive side in me. And by the time I would say 12, I just quit being a kid, and I decided I was going to be an adult and teach the adult classes and just give them a run for their money. So there's my personality a little bit. But a lot of this took me in through college, studying theology, among other things, history, kind of trying to find my grounding. Ended up marrying a man within the same religious sphere, who I was in no way to know, had many sociopathic tendencies. And after being married for almost 10 years, found out that he was living multiple lives with other women, other homes, other cars, other states. And I had to hire a detective, borrow $2,000 from a friend to hire a detective to find this out, because I didn't believe that I could be divorced unless he cheated because of my religious background. So if you're religious or Catholic or other religions, you may know that that would be a thing. Went through the divorce, and my whole world really collapsed around me at that time, because my entire perception of the world, like gravity, who God was, as it had been described and taught to me, who I was, what my purpose was, which was to be religious and make more religious people, and also kind of just be the perfect 1950s housewife. My parents, my father told me, I'm glad you're safe from him, but I don't know what your future plans are, but I just hope you realize that you will always be married to him in heaven. And the cognitive dissonance of all of this, I can't even tell you, um, almost undid me, almost completely undid me. Um, I held on to enough faith to get me through. I clung to a few people who I was so grateful that I had surrounded myself with a very, very small handful of people whom I could confide in. None of the leadership in my religion or many other people. My husband had been a leader in our church, so I moved across the country, 3,000 miles away, to kind of pick up and start over from scratch in a city where I knew one person and figured that was, at least I would have one friend. Part of my deconstruction, trying to figure out who in the world I was, how I was supposed to make an impact if I wasn't an extra religious person. Took me strangely after graduate school into Hollywood, where I was an actress for many years. And but still going through this deep existential crisis and not finding any of the peace or satisfaction that I wanted. And I began to realize that I was going to have to go through my own deconstruction, reconstruction process to find it. And yes, I had some support and help and books and various teachers and gurus. What I really realized, in order to get back to what I realized, was because I so desperately needed to find intellectual and emotional freedom, peace, ease. As I started looking back on that, I realized I had really gone through what I called 7 awakenings in my journey from fear to freedom. And that was what took me into coaching. I'd always been a teacher and coach at heart in many leadership positions. It's what took me back to nature, which, leaving Hollywood and moving out to very natural areas where at least my home itself could be in an environment of nurture and peace. This was all part of the blockages that I was slowly uncovering one by one. And what I realized along this journey, as I had been spending many years in researching and trying to understand and in my own personal development, was that all my blockages were rooted specifically in fear, which makes a lot of sense, being raised in a fear-based environment as I was. So from this emerged my program, The 7 Awakenings from Fear to Freedom, which is also the title of my book that's coming out next year. And in this framework, in this book, I teach a framework for moving from fear-based survival, which it sounds like from our sharing time, most all of us have been in, to freedom-based leadership in your life, in your work, in your relationships. Instead of treating burnout or self-doubt as flaws, it helps you decode them so you can rebuild from power, not pressure. And that is such a key part of what I teach, because if more self-discipline is what it takes to be happy, then I'm not interested. I want less pressure. I want to find ease. I want to resonate with nature. I want to wake up from fear. I teach my clients how to find freedom from the fear of fear itself. We're so entangled in this, we don't even see it. Freedom from shame and guilt, without, even if you don't have a religious matrix that you still rely on, or if you don't find complete emotional relief from shame and guilt, even within that religious matrix. Freedom from self-doubt. So in the last couple minutes here, I wanted to just give you a very tiny exercise. Don't write it down. It actually will defeat the purpose, because I would love going to ask you a few questions just for in your own head. And just go with the very first answer that comes to you if you possibly can. I'm only going to leave 5 or 10 seconds between questions, but take you on a little tiny journey of moving from fear to freedom. So if you're comfortable, if closing your eyes helps you, do that. If not, no big deal. So I'm going to ask you, what is one area of anxiety or distrust in your life right now? You can just think these answers silently in your head. What is one area of anxiety or distrust in your life right now? So what are you really afraid of? Why? Why are you afraid of it? Just make those answers quick. Your gut knows. How long have you been stuck in this fear? How long have you been stuck in this fear? Have you become addicted to this fear? Do you use it as a tool to avoid life or tough decisions? Do you actually want freedom from this fear itself? Do you actually want freedom from this fear itself? And lastly, what is one step toward freedom from this fear that you could take today? What is one step toward freedom from this fear that you could take today? Thank you for doing that with me. And as a quote from my book says, fear is an illusion. It's an anesthetic. It keeps us asleep. And then I'll close just with a quote from Carl Jung. Your task is where your fear is. Your task is where your fear is. And I'll put my contact information in the notes. Thank you.
Wow.